a recently released, true-to-life and inspirational but underrated film. It made millions of people cry. Some people sobbed from the beginning to the end of the film, crying and saying this is their real experience. Our main character, Ricky, is a 32-year-old, a working man who hasn't been able to own his own house yet. He delivers goods 14 hours a day. He works continuously for 30 days. Is completely exhausted. He also wants to rest. But every time he asks for leave, the leaders don't agree. Thinking about the 2 children at home who need to go to school, he can only give up asking for leave. Ricky is a delivery driver. The benefit of this industry is the more you deliver, the more you earn. He was attracted by this point. Friends say he can earn $200 a day. If you don't rent the company's high-priced car, if you take out a loan to buy a car for a franchise, you can save another £65 a day. As long as you work hard for 2 years, Ricky can turn his life around and earn enough for a down payment on a house. But the problem is taking out a loan for a van also requires a £1,000 down payment. The family has already lost their stable job due to the 2008 financial crisis and are still in debt. The only thing worth some money is his wife's car for commuting to work. Ricky's ambition moved his wife, but delivering packages isn't as easy as he thought. The first delivery was to the wrong address. The second delivery got a parking ticket. The third delivery received a customer complaint. And just like that, a whole day was wasted. Ricky gradually realized that what the boss said about no fixed working hours, basically, it's working around the clock. They even have to pee in bottles in the car. And since they sold the car, his wife's commute has also become a problem. Abby is a private caregiver. Like Ricky, she doesn't have a base salary. The more clients she cares for, the more she earns. So she cares for 8 people at the same time. This means that she has to, morning, noon and night, repeatedly go to 8 different locations. And these clients are all underprivileged people with disabilities and elderly people who can't manage their lives. No one cares about them, so they become withdrawn and depressed. Their emotions are very unstable. Some elderly people will get her covered in filth, or even the whole room. Even though it's disgusting, Abby still endures the stench and cleans up the work that is outside her responsibilities, because she knows the old woman's daughter doesn't care about her mother's life at all. But the extra hours spent, the platform is unwilling to pay her up anymore. Abby cried a grieved lie because tonight, she had promised her family to have dinner together. They haven't had dinner together for a long time, even though they all live in this small house. The couple leaves at 7 a.m. and can't get home until after 9 p.m., working more than 14 hours a day. Coming home is just so tired that you fall asleep. But although it's hard, life is still promising. But the eldest son is in rebellion, also addicted to graffiti. In order to buy spray paint, even sold the most expensive cotton coat in the house. Ricky doesn't understand that his son has always studied well. Why don't you suddenly want to go to school? Ricky works so hard, yet he remains a poor man doing odd jobs. He sees no hope. That's why his son chose to slack off. But compared to his rebellious older brother, the younger daughter is much more sensible. Not only does she take the initiative to do chores, she also delivers packages with Ricky on weekends. This is also one of the few times the father and daughter can spend happy moments together. The daughter is smart and clever, and often receives tips. This is something Ricky has never enjoyed. He decides to reward his younger daughter. The whole family had a very happy dinner, enjoying a rare weekend moment. But just then, his wife's phone rang. An old client, an elderly man paralyzed on one side, had an accident because he couldn't solve the problem of urination. Abby was so worried that she decided to go there herself. But on a weekend night, it was impossible to get a taxi at all. So the eldest son suggested they take their father's truck together. The whole family sang songs along the way, without complaints or arguments. It seemed life was getting back on track. However, the next day, the son got into big trouble again. He beat up a classmate and accidentally injured a teacher who was trying to break it up. But Ricky still had deliveries to finish. Taking time off would not only result in a deduction in pay, but also require paying someone to cover his shift. In the end, Ricky couldn't make it to school. Only Abby, as the mother, arrived at the scene. The principal thought the father didn't take it seriously enough, and issued a 14-day suspension. Ricky questioned his wife. Why not protest? Why not fight for it? His wife left home in anger. It was then that Ricky realized that his wife was not only exhausted by work, but also on the verge of a breakdown. Even though both of them worked hard, how come life and family were getting worse and worse? It's the lack of companionship. To save his family, Ricky decided to take a few days off to repair his relationship with his family. But the boss started to gaslight him again. You call that a reason? He's already refused 5 people this week. Hemorrhoid surgery, family stroke, daughter wants to commit suicide. Isn't everyone more miserable than you? Ricky, you can rest if you want, as long as it doesn't interfere with work. Ricky, who hasn't had much schooling, heard by these capitalists, would be deeply impressed by the logic that brings tears to their eyes, even feeling a bit ashamed. How could I make such a request? But after only 2 days of work, his son, SEB, got into big trouble again. He was caught by the police for stealing spray paint. Fortunately, he's a minor. As long as his parents come to the police station to pick him up, he won't have a criminal record. But he can't get through to his wife's phone. Ricky has to ask for leave again. Ricky didn't complain this time after being refused, because he doesn't want his son to have a criminal record. This is a matter that concerns his son's entire life. The police also saw that there was a lack of communication between the father and son. Looking at SEB's impatient demeanor, he must give him a lecture. However, boys of this age find it difficult to admit mistakes. Even if he already feels remorseful inside, there isn't a trace of shame on his face. He even keeps playing on his phone, muttering, I didn't do drugs. I just stole a few things. Ricky completely lost it. Eventually, Seba ran away from home, leaving Ricky looking completely lost. A heartbroken Abby, and a frightened little sister. That night, the couple talked about the day's conflict. The wife felt that communication was the only way to solve the problem. Once you resort to violence, the connection is broken. But Ricky was still angry, thinking his wife was blaming him. However, just as the couple's conflict was about to escalate further, the little daughter next door, being overwhelmed by the overly tense atmosphere, scared so much that he wet the bed. Only then did Ricky snap awake and apologize. Abby didn't blame him. Believing her husband was indeed overworked. But confiscating the phone really didn't provide any help. Ricky realized it had been too long since he paid attention to his son's life. Walking into his son's room, everything inside was unfamiliar. He decided to change and return the phone to his son. But when he woke up the next day, he found his son using spray paint again, spraying black paint on the entire family photo. What's worse, the car keys were also missing. Without the keys, he couldn't go to work. Ricky searched all the places his son frequented, but he couldn't find Seba. I can only ask my boss for leave again. Unsurprisingly, he was fined £100 again. And if it happens again, he will lose his job. Frustrated, Ricky got heavily drunk. His son came back. Ricky asked him for the car keys. Seba ran away from home again. This was also the first time Ricky hit his child. After calming down, he felt extremely remorseful. He sat alone on a bench until late at night, constantly reminiscing about everything that had happened recently. At this moment, his little daughter called, crying, asking him to come home. It turned out that she had taken the keys in the middle of the night. She thought that as long as her dad didn't deliver packages, life could go back to the way it was. The little daughter cried guiltily. Ricky and Abby also cried. But life must go on. The next day, Ricky went to work on time, but a night's rest failed to wash away the fatigue of the past few days. He drove drowsily against the traffic, almost causing a tragedy. Ricky understood the root of all the problems was this high-intensity job. But he couldn't stop, otherwise this family would have even bigger problems. On the way to deliver the packages, Ricky still didn't have time to go to the bathroom. But suddenly a few punks rushed out from behind him and beat him up. Their purpose was to steal all the phones. Before leaving, they poured that bottle of urine on Ricky's face as the price for resisting. His wife accompanied Ricky for a checkup. His face was full of injuries and 2 ribs were broken. But Ricky didn't want to stay for even a second longer, because he was afraid he couldn't afford it. Those exorbitant medical bills. Just then, the boss called to inquire about the situation. Not about the illness, but about compensating for the lost packages. The scanner needs compensation. A total of £1,500. It can be paid in installments. If you can't come to work, remember to find someone to cover your shift. And because it's a partnership, he doesn't have workers' compensation insurance either. All expenses are handled on your own. The wife on the side could no longer bear it, roaring and screaming at the evil capital. The always gentle wife broke down. They are clearly working so hard. Why is life like this? After learning about his father's experience in the evening, the son returned. Ricky was very pleased with his son's comfort. Even the wounds didn't hurt that much. The next day, Ricky got up early. On the cards left for customers at the delivery company, he wrote, "Abby, don't be angry. I'm okay. I love you." Dragging his wounded body, he rushed to a battlefield without smoke. Suddenly, his son chased after him, trying to stop his father from going to work, because he could only see with one eye. Driving like that is like risking your life for money. His wife rushed out after realizing it. But Ricky still left resolutely, like a warrior going to his death with courage. A husband, a father, a person who doesn't belong to himself. Ricky didn't know what lay ahead, what other hardships were in store. Only know to move forward relentlessly. There is no turning back for him. If it becomes truly unbearable, then have a good cry. After crying, continue on your way.